You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So a few days back, remember I told you that Yum Brands, which owns retail fast food chains such as some of the Taco Bells, was investigated for the possible link with their shredded lettuce to the cyclosporiasis outbreak. And we have learned over the last day or so that they do believe that the lettuce that Taco Bell might have gotten and distributed might have been linked to this multi-state outbreak. Not very shocking. I mean, every summer there seems to be some foodborne illness, and every few years something happens, whether it's at, and if you notice it, it's at a lot of places that either serve fresh food or like to include lettuce and healthy components. You rarely hear, and I don't want to name names, but there's some brands you rarely hear of, and it's probably because they don't use as many fresh ingredients. But those who claim they're using fresh ingredients are going to be more at risk of then having foodborne illness and foodborne outbreaks. So CNN is reporting that the shredded iceberg lettuce sold at some Taco Bell restaurants, some of them, not all of them, have been linked to the outbreak. Now, already days before, Taco Bell stopped using them. So the CDC has said, do not eat shredded iceberg lettuce served at Taco Bell locations in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia. We have over 7,000 cases confirmed or under investigation, over 180 hospitalizations. But just because this has come out saying that, well, the Taco Bell that distributed in these areas might be linked, doesn't mean your cyclosporia is from that. Okay, remember, there's usually a few thousand cases of this that happen every year anyway. So every year we have cyclosporiasis. That's nothing new. It's a parasite, likes the vegetables, likes the boysenberries or the raspberries or the fruits. It knows how to hide. Somebody doesn't wash your hands properly and oral fecal route. You can't breathe it on somebody, but if you touch something that was contaminated or, maybe contaminated farm water or something like that, or it wasn't cleaned properly, you could get it. So if somebody says, well, I'm in Arizona and I think I have cyclosporiasis, so I need to still get tested. You have to get tested because it's a CDC reportable illness. A doctor really is not supposed to treat that over the phone. They're supposed to confirm what you have and then monitor and make sure you're okay. But these other cases could be related to the outbreak with Taco Bell or other reasons. So that's what we have to be really, really careful of, because we always have baseline cyclosporiasis cases. The outbreak linked to the lettuce is, they believe, just a regional one centered in the Midwest. The CDC has identified 1,644 cases associated with that outbreak across 5 affected states. However, additional states are being investigated as well. We do not know the lettuce supplier per se. That hasn't been identified, but a source told CNN that they think it's Taylor Farms. FDA said the lettuce was grown in Mexico, and it's working with the supplier to determine if potentially contaminated shredded iceberg lettuce remains on the market. Can I just say something about this iceberg lettuce? I get its roughage. It has the least amount of vitamins and nutrients. I would rather you put spinach. Okay, you don't have to put spinach on your taco, but we use iceberg lettuce in fast food because it's cheap. Yeah, and iceberg lettuce has water, although the shredded ones look pretty dried out and small. And again, if you're going to be eating a hamburger, or you're going to be eating an iceberg lettuce salad, I'd rather you get an iceberg lettuce salad in you. I think it's less cholesterol and less preservatives, etc. But it's interesting because we think that if we're adding this to our taco, we're making it healthy. Cut fresh tomatoes. Cut your lettuce or your green leafy. But there's ways to make tacos that don't have to necessarily where you have to rely on fast food to get your 4 food groups. I remember in the 80s, I was really young, but I remember how they were talking about how the Big Mac had all 4 food groups because you had the meat, you had the cheese, you had the bread, and then you had the little shredded lettuce. So people are like, okay, I need all my 4 food groups. I don't know if you remember Mulligan stew. I had 4, 4, 3, 2. I mean, even though they changed now how much meat and dairy and bread and all that you need, and now the pyramid is flipped, and we have all these new nutritional recommendations. But I remember people saying the Big Mac gives you all 4 food groups, and then pizza. That if you add some spinach to your pizza, chicken, spinach, cheese, you have all 4 food groups. And I didn't, as a doctor, I kept, thinking about what they did in the 80s. I didn't mind that sort of campaign. I don't know if it was under C. Everett Koop, in the Reagan administration, or I don't know who necessarily spearheaded that campaign. But I didn't mind the idea of you got to think about adding vegetables to what you eat. If you're going to have a arroz con pollo, you could easily put some tomato in there, even though tomato's fruit. You could easily, put it on a bed of spinach. I mean, there's ways you gotta sneak in and get those vegetables in you, because it's very easy to just have meat and cheese or just bread. And so we gotta figure out how to get vegetables. So shredded lettuce has been one of the draws, even though I think it tastes horrible, especially when it's like hot and greasy with cheese. I don't like shredded iceberg lettuce at all. But there's this demand for it because they're like, I need to feel like I'm making my sandwich healthy. And I love tacos. I really like the little carne asada tacos. Those are my favorite. But, Taco Bell, I don't go to Taco Bell a lot. I don't believe it's the only, shall we say, culprit in this, suspect in this. I think because we see such widespread use of this, I wouldn't be surprised if restaurants in other areas could have it. So, as they're saying, avoid using the shredded lettuce if you eat in those Midwest states named, but keep in mind that there's cyclosporiasis cases across the U.S. right now. So just watch what you eat, wash it off, and try to cook your own food. 1-877-DOC.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I like to fix problems. I don't like problems. I don't like drama. I just want solutions and us to be able to move on because I think there's bigger and badder things out there. But there's a lot of concern and rising distrust as it pertains to our election system. And part of that was fueled by COVID because we then used mail-in ballots, which were only a handful of thousands per precinct, per district, that ended up now being the default way to vote. And so, when you look back at the 2020 election, all right, and I'm not here to decide if it was stolen or not, but there were a lot of questions around it. Whereas, the Olympics said, look, with COVID, we're going to have to put it off. With, everybody else said we're going to put things off until the COVID, crisis dies down. With the elections, they said, no, we could do it because we'll try this. It wasn't tried and true. It wasn't rehearsed. It was, we're going to just shift and we'll make it work. And so many people questioned whether it was a better way to do elections. And is this now a better way to do it? Or if this allows more room for fraud. So I don't like conspiracy theories. I don't want to see people accuse, something of being wrong when it's not. But we do have some objective, obvious things that we're seeing in our present day. Okay? And one of the things we are seeing is our vulnerability to hacking. All right? The CIA has been hacked. The Senate's been hacked. Sony has been hacked. Hospital systems have been hacked. So we do know that hacking can happen. And the election system, voting machines, probably just as vulnerable. If a hospital's and somebody's pacemaker can get hacked, yeah, probably if we're using some sort of electronic system and we're not just putting our paper ballot in a box, yeah, there's some vulnerability. So we know that. We also know that not everybody is getting their mail-in ballot or they lose their mail-in ballot. That's not anything that's a partisan. It's pretty bipartisanly seen. And that not everybody is getting their ballot and feeling like their ballot is being counted. We're also another objective, kind of understood thing that we do in America is, if you're going to go on a plane and you're going to claim that's your plane ticket, you got to show the ID. If you're going to get an apartment, got to show your ID. If you're going to get a beer and you're in your 20s, got to show an ID. So that being asked for ID is commonplace. That's, that's, and why? To ensure that nobody is pretending to be you. And we also have identity theft. Identity theft is very common in America and in other countries. So we know these things exist. So if somebody says, well, are our elections immune from hacking, from voter fraud, from somebody taking somebody else's test, or somebody's like we see in school, or is our current system immune from that? No, that's not being conspiratory. I mean, we have had cheating in elections since the dawn of time. There's always been cheating. Somebody voting for their dead neighbor or that's always happened. But it was never, as much of an issue or a headline because you were only talking about a handful of cases, not enough to sway the vote. You also would pretty much know who was your president or who was your representative on election day or the day after. I believe with the Bush-Gore, it took a little while. That was, one of the very few elections where we didn't know the exact day. We wouldn't, we had an idea, but it still took a while. With the Chads and all that with Florida. We also, as a truth or kind of an objective aspect in today's world is we have a very, very divided country where rather than a landslide win, as it pertained to Reagan-Mondale, we are having razor-thin numbers in the Senate, in the House. And so the demand for there to be no funny business is there from both Democrats and Republicans. If we have a system where somebody could cheat, somebody could hack, somebody could influence, somebody could pay people to register to vote who aren't supposed to be voting in that district, if there's any sort of funny business, that hurts the Democrats and the Republicans and independents or anybody that wants a fair election. Elections in a democratic republic are so fantastic. What we have the ability to do is so freeing compared to what they have in other countries and what they've had in other centuries. But it's not free if you think that somebody is filling up boxes, filling up ballots, grabbing your ballot, voting for you. When my friend's son went to vote, and they said, you can't, you already voted in Colorado. And he's like, what are you talking about? I've never been to Colorado. I'm trying to vote here in Texas. Let me vote. No, somebody voted for you already. That starts to make people nervous. And where I stand, it's not with the Democrats or the Republicans where I stand is with the Republic. I want America to never become a communist fascist regime. I want to know that if my neighbor goes to do his vote, that vote is actually going to get in the mailbox. That vote is actually going to get into the ballot box. And that vote's going to count. My vote's going to count. When half my family doesn't get mail-in ballots, that makes me nervous. So yesterday, Trump had a speech about election integrity. And, he talked about how there's been non-citizens voting, talked about how China has been able to access, apparently we had a hack of 200 million voter registrations and IDs, and which means we don't have that protection, we don't have that integrity. Where there was cover-up, people did know where this deep state, which we've talked about before, where the powers that be are the ones running things. But the vulnerabilities of our electronic voting and ballot counting systems is something that is not that shocking. Apparently, what Trump did is on whitehouse.gov, he said he declassified there's a lot of data. There's a lot of stuff to go through, but he said he declassified, what they found and what they investigated, what they found. And, do we really think China is looking at our voting systems and our vote and our abilities to and our software? And absolutely if it's electronic, if there's access to the cybersphere, it's hackable. Now, does that mean we go back to paper, walking in and putting your ballot in the box? What is the safest way to do it? If people think, Dr. Dahlia, this is just Trump going off and, he wants the Save America Act. And so this is just because he's mad about the 2020 election. So we don't have to worry about it on the Democratic side. I think the Democratic side really, really has to worry, because if the vulnerabilities are out there, and, there's this reputation that the Republicans don't cheat, but the Democrats do. The Republicans could cheat also. So if you're a Democrat and you're going, no, this is just Trump, the vote, no voter ID, none of that, you are going to be very, very vulnerable also in the upcoming elections. So what we need to do is ensure we're not America. We're not a democratic, a representative democracy. We're not a republic if we don't feel that our elections are actually, this is what the people want. This is why Trump said, well, we have to win too big to rig. It has to be too big to rig, where there's so many votes that it's impossible to pump out, these false mail-in ballots or whatever for the other side. I don't want anybody thinking that's what happens, but that's what people are going to surmise, whether there's CIA evidence of it or not. Because look at the mayor race in California weeks later with the last election. It was, I think we were right before Christmas when we found out who the final California representative races were. They were originally being won by Republicans, and then at the end, the Democrats won. And the argument for that was, well, the mail-in ballots are mostly Democrat. So when those finally got counted, it flipped it. Okay, if that happened, that happened. But the problem is that nobody's trusting. Nobody's trusting the system. So how do we fix it? We got to make it a system that everybody could trust. So, yeah, we should have voter IDs. We should have an unhackable system. And we should make sure that everybody feels like their vote counts. And mail-in ballots should be for those, like other countries do, where you have to apply for it, get it, and then that's your one vote, so nobody could vote for you and use your name. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So, Mayor Karen Bass had recently justified the homeless population's use of meth because she says that's a way for them to, quote, stay awake for protection on the city's dangerous streets. And so the funding that helps still, I guess, I don't want to say incentivize, but still embraces the drug use may be necessary. Now, I've worked with the homeless population, and there is no doubt that it is the most dangerous place to be if you're homeless, to be where you are on the street out there, a victim. Homeless people get raped, they get assaulted, they get attacked, they get killed. And so if there is an argument that Karen Bass is making that, the meth may be justifiable, I would rather we be putting the effort into getting the homeless off the street. I mean, you have the addiction, you have the drug markets, you have the infectious disease. Oh, it's not a good situation. And so we always talk about, well, we got to help our homeless. We got to help our homeless. Yet the homeless crisis is rising. Why is the homeless crisis? Why are we having more homeless people than we ever have, especially when we are pumping billions of dollars across the states to try to help our homeless population? So when somebody becomes homeless, it could start out as something very simple. As they got kicked out of the house. They had a fight, got kicked out of the house. So they had to sleep in the car. Well, then they really couldn't get an apartment. So they're kind of staying in the car. And then they might have lost their job. Or they're having trouble keeping their job. Well, now they have to find a place where they could stay outside. The car stops working. Car gets stripped. Car gets... and now here you are finding yourself where you got to make yourself some shelter. The homelessness is not always a sign of somebody being completely incompetent or incoherent. Right? Some of them are people using their survival instincts. Whether they're camping outside in the woods or they're camping outside on a sidewalk, they're finding a way to have shelter and live and survive. And God bless them for doing that. Now, there's a lot of people that may take their lives. They want to still live. Then you have individuals who struggle with mental illness. And these individuals struggle then to keep job or to keep relationships. And they can't keep jobs, can't keep relationships. However, they do find a way, some of them, to make themselves a home outside. So they do have some competency. There's still a level of competency there. And then you have the individuals where they're wandering. They are not of sound mind at all. And they just wander until they fall asleep, or they drink, or they, pass out, and they don't have a home in homelessness. And the underlying theme to all of those types of individuals who are homeless is they're helpable. There are ways that we can intervene. Now, how are we intervening at this point? Well, sometimes they move them over. They tell them to go to shelters. But it's not working because you are just seeing tent after tent after tent and rows of them. There's, I think, like an Inside Safe program where thousands of people get moved indoors, but then they go right back to the streets. Why? Is it because these programs don't feel safe? Is it because they don't want to be, they want their own, when if you look at people that are homeless, they have their own, some of them, they have their own tent. They have their own, they don't want to be in a dorm setting. They don't want to be they don't want others around. And so what you need to first do is not treat all homeless as the same entity. Everybody's homeless for a different reason. Our veterans coming back from tours of duty, some with PTSD, some with severe injuries, not getting jobs, not being a part of their relationship. Either the relationship fell apart or, and we have a lot of homeless veterans out there. Why? And what is it that they need? Do they need a job? Do they need a work from home until they feel like they can work with other people? We have to identify the groups, and we don't have to necessarily have each individual, person analyzed, but there's groups, maybe 3 or 4 different classifications of why somebody's homeless. If somebody is homeless because of drugs, get them to a drug rehab center. Get them off drugs, and then job placement, etc. Now, people will say, but Dr. Dahlia, who is going to hire somebody recovering from drugs? There are a lot of jobs needed. And there are a lot of things somebody recovering from drugs can do. I mean, we might not have them be surgeons, right? If they don't have a medical degree, but there's, we have the ability to find where the city has needs. And so we can have a look. The city's going to help you. They're going to help give you shelter. The city's going to give you food temporarily, but then you have work to do for the city, whether it's answering a phone, whether it is filing something, whether it is, there's things that person could do. And get them a CV, get them a resume, allow them to start building up some confidence. Now, this is expensive. This is very, very expensive because right now we are losing billions of dollars, and it's just not, we feel like, so what's happening with politicians in these cities is they need to say they're doing something for the homeless. They don't care if they're being effective with it. They just want to say, we took 200,000 people off the street. Yay, you took off yeah, but now we have 400,000 back on the street. They're just trying to use the sound bites of what they say they did. Well, picking them up, putting them in a shelter, and then them going out like a revolving door, that's not fixing homelessness. Especially when you drive around and you just see tent after tent after tent. And giving them a high rise in New York, doesn't necessarily solve the problem either, especially on taxpayers' expense. So this might mean getting them to a farm. This might mean if somebody's homeless, not able, getting them to Iowa, Mississippi, to, a place that's less populated, maybe more acclimate weather, that where they can do something that they feel productive with. And get them away from those that are assaulting them, those are giving them drugs. But when we have to start thinking outside the box. And for Karen Bass to say, well, yeah, but the meth keeps them awake so they don't get attacked. If we're having people attacked, American citizens attacked, anybody attacked, whether they're homeless or not, it's our duty to protect them. Can you imagine the mayor telling a family of 4 who thinks that their next door neighbor is going to come over to kill them? Well, use meth so you're awake. No, you address, you make sure they're safe. So whether somebody's homeless or not, they deserve safety. Is meth a stimulant? Yeah. But to be surrendering to the point where you're like, you know what, let the homeless do drugs because that's how they're surviving. No, it means we need to do a better job. And if people are losing their jobs and losing their homes and not having relationships, and we're going to have more and more Americans on the street, we better start thinking about where this is going, whether it's because of AI, whether it's because the homes are too expensive. I mean, we see homelessness a lot in LA, San Francisco, Seattle, New York. Well, because those places are expensive. So maybe we need to help get them jobs, get them cleaned up from a drug standpoint, if some are on drugs, and get them to a cheaper part of the country where they could live and have a life. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So have you ever driven on LA freeways or in California? I have a lot for a good part of my life. And some people just can't drive. And I live in Southern Nevada. And every now and then I'm on the 215 or I'm on the I-15 or the 95. And some idiot tries to clip me and then transverse multiple lanes. And I look and it's a California license plate. Now, I was born in California. I don't like to rip on California. But the drivers from California have a reputation. Different from New York drivers. And I've driven in New York. In New York, you need to drive aggressively. You just do. It's because there's not a lot of roads, there's not a lot of space. If there's a little bit of 5 extra feet, you need to grab it or somebody else is going to. And I drive differently in New York than I drive in California. I can't explain it, but it's a different aggression. It just is. And I've needed to drive, and I like driving. But New York is tricky. With California, it's not that tricky because you're always just sitting there in gridlock. But when California drivers go to other places where there's open space, they drive stupid. In fact, I've driven stupid. I was in California for a few days, came back, and I noticed that I was gunning it to get in between the spaces I could find. I had to stop and go, wait a second. I'm in Southern Nevada. I don't have to now gun it. I can very comfortably change a lane now anytime I want. As well as in California, you feel like you aren't going to be able to change a lane. But California drivers do get a reputation. And now this is adding to the reputation. The California DMV has issued 11,000 letters suggesting that they cheated. And the recipients need to retake a written knowledge test within 30 days or they lose their driver's license. Why? Because an internal monitoring investigation turned up testing irregularities. Now, they say that if you get one of these letters, if you're one of the 11,000, it doesn't mean they think you cheated. Okay, that's why they're using this net term of irregularities. It could be there was a glitch with the software and you passed without it actually checking your abilities. But from what we're understanding, there's been cheating. So, and because there were some patterns flagged that cheating was occurred, they're not going to mess around, especially now with all the lawsuits and the accidents and the issues that they're seeing with people who are not passing their written tests. Let me see here. If I have, I don't know if I have, let me see any more information on that. I believe there were people using earpieces. There was cameras. So there, now this I think was in South Florida, where there was some cheating where people were using surveillance. But according to KQED, organized cheating schemes using hidden cameras and earpieces have resulted in felony arrests. So there's a 30-day window for those of you that get this letter. I know it's a pain in the butt. Study up. It's easy. But in Miami-Dade, there was a bust. And so this isn't just California, which I really suggest that any state, looks for cheating. But the issue we're having as it pertains to driving is, I think many of us, we go through, if you're American and you go through the American school system, you get driver's ed when you're a sophomore, 15, 16 years old, you get your permit. And then you, maybe some states you get to, when you're 14, especially when there's farm equipment that you're able to show competency with. And then, you're able to drive after you pass both a practical where they see you drive, they see how you drive, they see how you use your turn signal and all that. I call it a clicker, but it's a turn signal. And then you take a written test and you have to do well on both. If you fail, you need to study and you need to take it again. And they're very lenient with allowing you to retake it. But my issue with this is that somebody felt like they had to cheat. If a medical student needs to cheat, they shouldn't be a doctor. Okay, because we're testing you to make sure you can save lives and not hurt. You could hurt somebody if you don't know the material. So no medical student should cheat or want to cheat, because then they're going to be a horrible doctor. Well, same thing with the driver. We don't want you to be a horrible driver, because if you're a horrible driver, you could kill somebody, including yourself. So the fact that there are possible, let's say it's not all 11,000. Let's say some of them are just, innocently caught up in a software issue. But, which, again, another argument, like we're seeing with the mail and the ballot machines and the election machines and all that. There's vulnerabilities with software. I mean, if you want to prove that you did your test, you hand write it. Here's my test. Here's my answers. This is me. This is what I put. Don't let a computer change it. And when somebody says, Dr. Dahlia, the computers are not going to change your answers. They can. That happened to me last week. Or was it 2 weeks ago? Where I am doing an asynchronous visit on telemedicine where the person inputted their information. I look at it and then I put my diagnosis and the software hijacked it, gave it a diagnosis, signed my name to it electronically. And I go, that's not my diagnosis. I didn't even finish it. It just completely just closed down. And so it does happen. And that was scary because I'm like, no. And I immediately called the tech company and I said, you gotta do something. That's not my diagnosis. That is wrong. Please exit it out and let me redo it. It wouldn't let me redo it, but they said they canceled it. But I'm still worried that I'm on a note that I never officially diagnosed or did. That's pretty frightening stuff. So, yes, it can happen where the software could get hijacked, which is why I really, really still like paper and pencil. That's just me. And I love the trees, but the fact that we would have individuals needing to cheat. So it'd be very interesting to see who these 11,000 people are. Now, if we find that in this group of 11,000, there are thousands of individuals who are illegal immigrants who don't know English and want to drive to feed their family. And they're doing what they can to pass the test. Now, I think a lot of individuals who are illegal immigrants, are not bad people. They're here to, take care of their family. It's just we have a legal pathway and an illegal pathway. The legal pathway has to still be just like any other country, the way that people go through. Otherwise, we don't have a legal pathway then. Then it's just chaos. So who are these individuals? And if we find that many of these individuals don't know English, and that's why they needed to cheat, well, that's a safety risk. They need to learn English. My father, when he came to this country, he learned English. And that was his first thing he did so he could pass the citizenship test, and then he could pass the driving test. It was just an absolute. In fact, I think in Denmark, they make you learn Danish. You have to know the language. If not, there could be safety issues. And so to see that 11,000, and this is just 11,000. I mean, when you're looking at the millions of drivers in California, how many more cheated? What did they catch? Have I ever cheated in school? Oh, absolutely. I told you about that case where I asked my one of my friends in seventh grade, or surely it was a friend, what was the answer, number 4 or 5? She said had it to do with the Mayans. She said they swam and ate tomatoes. They swam and ate tomatoes. She said that was the answer. So I filled in my line, they swam and ate tomatoes. Well, then everybody copied off of me. And then the next day, the teacher said, the majority of you cheated. You're taking the test over again. And we're like, why? She said, because you guys said that the Mayans swam and ate tomatoes. And the majority of the class said that. Where did you get that? And the girl who gave us that answer was laughing. I'm like, really? That wasn't cool. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.